Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. I appreciate you all from wherever you are watching me. Does Netanyahu's coalition want regional war and what it means for the Middle East? I'm going to discuss this hot topic with Elijah Magnier. He is a veteran war correspondent and political analyst with over 35 years of experience, and also Mohamad Hasan, Sweidan, political researcher, author, and columnist for The Cradle. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with me today in this live streaming. I really appreciate you for dedicating this time to me. Before I start this discussion with you, I would like to make a little announcement. I personally am very much against. I'm anti-self-inflicted pain. I'm anti any type of action that could harm yourself and your soul and your surrounding, especially suicide and killing yourself. I'm totally against it. However, I thought in the past 10 years that I watched countless of horrifying videos, leading me to believe that nothing could ever shock me to the core again. However, Aaron Bushnell proved me completely wrong. And I think you know what I'm talking about. And the American active soldier, he was on duty, who burned himself. And this is in front of the embassy of Israel, and this was his last words. He said, "My name is Aaron Bushnell. I am an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people in Palestine have been experiencing at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal, free Palestine." And this is what our friend from South Africa had to say about this case. He said, "I don't know what went through this young man's mind, but to be driven to do something so drastic knowing he will die speaks volumes of the reasons why he did it. Some will say that he was crazy. For others, he is a hero. The allegorical symbolism is that millions of people witnessed a young man who opposed his country and who is funding an entire population to burn every single day for the past 4.5 months, now put himself on fire. His message was especially for Americans. And if this doesn't shake Americans as a nation about the horrors of Gaza, knowing very damn well that thousands of Palestinians have been subjected to being burned, blown to pieces, starving, being in fear, and being traumatized for life. If they survive that, then America as a collective will never wake up and tell Israel to go and pound sand. What does the American military stand for? Is it to defend and serve, or does it exist only to destroy? What does we as a collective global community stand for and tolerate? Who and what have we become? The Zionist response to Aaron's death has been atrocious. Who are they? What are they? Will they only find peace when the rest of humanity is burned up and destroyed? Is that what they want? Rest in peace, Aaron Bushnell. I just wanted to read to you guys what the online community is speaking about it. I know this is a very controversial issue. And today we are, of course, going to continue discussing what's happening in the Gaza Strip. And this time I'm going to touch the article of Ehud Olmert, who recently published an article in the Haaretz. And this was something probably surprising for some, but not for many people. And he says the supreme aim of the far-right duo National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich is not the occupation of the Gaza Strip. Gaza is just the introductory chapter. The platform this gang wants to build as the foundation upon which the real fight they are eyeing will be conducted, the battle for the West Bank and the Temple Mount. The ultimate aim of this gang is purging the West Bank of its Palestinian inhabitants, cleansing the Temple Mount of its Muslim worshippers, and annexing the territories of this state to the territories of the state of Israel. Elijah, if I would like to start with you this conversation, I'm not going to ask you if the project is reasonable because Israeli officials clearly lost touch with reality. But I would like to know if Ben-Gvir and Smotrich would dare to pursue such an operation and what repercussions it could have inside Palestine and in the neighboring countries.
Thank you for hosting me. So the problem today people make is they talk only about Itamar Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, or Eliyahu, the heritage minister. And
Yes.
what they admit is that the same Likud party charter 1977 calls for the Israeli state as a nation from the Mediterranean to the River Jordan, and then call for the West Bank as part of Israel, and end with the presence of every Palestinian in the territory of Israel is a threat to the national security. So I think we cannot exclude the Likud party and Benjamin Netanyahu away from this plan, because they are all together. And this is why Benjamin Netanyahu brought on board his government in the coalition the extreme rights as Magnier and Smotrich and all the gangs around it. So yes, this is initially the plan today, and the 7th of October was an opportunity for Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition to put in practice the old biblical plan and to invade all of Gaza and finish off from Gaza, move to the West Bank. What is happening in the West Bank is not new. It's something that has been going on for decades. The Oslo 1993, 1994, and 1995 agreement did not change anything. It gave the Palestinian state and total control on Zone A, which they don't have. So yes, now with this war, with the 7th of October, Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to implement his goal, his objective, and get rid of the Palestinian resistance, or turn it in a way similar to what's happening in the West Bank.
And what could happen inside of Palestine if this is such a project is in advanced levels, for example? Are we expecting an internal intifada, for example, from the Palestinian side? Because Ehud Olmert says that this is one of the objectives of this radical government, that to trigger a resistance against the Israeli side, which gives them the perfect opportunity or an excuse to purge every Palestinian from the West Bank and call them all terrorists, and this time in West Bank, right?
Yes, I agree with that. So from the first beginning of this war, the Israeli chief of staff divided the Israeli army in 4 parts. One for Gaza, one for the south of Lebanon, one for the West Bank, and one as a reserve to inject in the battlefield wherever it is necessary. On the West Bank, the Israeli command is looking forward for a kind of an intifada to do exactly the same what it has been done in Gaza and do it in the West Bank. So the objective is to destroy the infrastructure and to starve the population. This is something that is easy for the Israeli army to do. It doesn't mean they can win over the resistance, because the resistance represents the population. But what they can do is to try to break the will of the civilians by starving them. This is a new war that the Israelis have started several weeks ago, and it has been quite effective in Gaza, where people are indeed starving without clean water. They have a phenomenal number of diseases that is hitting the entire society. They don't know where to go. They are without shelter. More than 400,000 homes have been destroyed. More than 1.5 to 1.8 million have been internally displaced, and nobody is secure. So there is a state in Gaza today where the Palestinian population and civilians have been severely damaged in their property, in their dignity, and in the minimum they need to survive.
Yes. Mohamad, if I want to move with you to the second part, where here, for example, Ehud Olmert argues that this gang of pogromists, he says, have taken control of the government of Israel and have made the man who heads it into their servant. The possibility that they will dismantle the government and kick the prime minister out of running the matters of state is not outlandish. It is a process that is taking place at this very moment, step by step. I mean, it seems to me that here Olmert gives the impression that Netanyahu is not in charge. Do you share Olmert's notion that Netanyahu is a political hostage of Ben Gvir and Smotrich? And if they try to what they call purge the West Bank from the Palestinians, what would be the reaction, for example, in Lebanon, in Jordan, and in Egypt, or in the region in general?
First of all, let me start by saying that, of course, Netanyahu is not a servant for anyone, of course. He is one of the most important political leaders in Israel, and he has proved over the years that he has a very important weight in Israel. If he didn't have this importance, he would have been kicked out months ago, maybe 1 or 2 months after the war has started. He knows what he is doing. As a matter of fact, he is currently being able to stand against what the US is trying to ask him to do for months. So no, I think he is one of the most important political factors in Israel. And but I do also believe that all of these are servants of the right wing. You know, they are one package. They have one ideology. They share the same ideas regarding how to deal with Palestine, how to deal with Lebanon, how to deal with different areas in the region. The difference, or the factor that which is more important than this, is the realities. I mean, it's obvious from day one that Netanyahu and the right wing wanted to start a war in Lebanon from the first day, but the realities didn't help them. And we will speak later about this specific situation. And let's ask ourselves a question: why did the Americans speak a lot about the need to go for a truce before Ramadan? I think that the main reason is that they believe the Israelis cannot handle what may happen from Muslims in the region, especially in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Jordan, in other regions, in other countries in the region. The reaction may be unpredictable. Number two, they don't believe the Israelis can handle this reaction, especially after more than 4 months of the war. The Israelis are really tired. It's one of the hardest wars they have faced in the last years. So such a huge reaction from Muslims in the region will be very hard on them. So regarding will they follow what they want? Of course, it's in their interest. They want to do that. They want to go to the West Bank. They want to do everything there. But it's the reaction they are trying to avoid.
And who's trying to contain this? Americans are trying to contain this situation behind closed doors, or are they tacitly supporting the Israelis to finish what they call the job? Because if you remember, the American envoy, permanent envoy to the UN, when she vetoed for the third time, I think, the UN Security Council resolution for ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, she spoke about the final solution for the problem. The final solution. We remember when was the last time somebody used the term final solution, right? During the Second World War. And it gives me the impression that the Americans are also in the same wagon with the Americans.
Yeah, look, here are there are two very important factors we should state. There is no difference regarding the goals between Americans and Israelis. The difference is regarding the tactics used to achieve the goals. From day one, Americans have said two very important advices to Israel. Number one, you can't destroy Hamas. Hamas is an idea. And this is the lesson they learned from Vietnam, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, from different regions and from different countries in the region. So the second advice was regarding that the war is a tool used to achieve a political goal at the end of the way. So what's your political plan for after Gaza? What Netanyahu is telling them that I'm willing to go militarily till the end, then I won't have to go to a political plan. The Americans are telling him that there is no way you can achieve destroying any resistance without having a political plan for Gaza. So they both agree about destroying the resistance, about fighting for Israel's interests, but the difference is with how do we achieve these goals. And to be honest, I believe that Americans care more Israel that Israelis do. And that's why they are so overwhelmed with giving Israel the right advice and taking it to the place it serves its interests best. So the first part is Americans are pushing Israel away from some militarily very right-wing decisions, because Americans believe this doesn't serve Israel's interests. Two, is what's happening on ground. After 4.5 months, what deterred Israel from Lebanon is, I believe, and all military experts believe, it's a very small percentage of Lebanese resistance power. This is a fact today. So they know that they are facing an enemy which is very strong, which has been able to deter them by using a very small percentage of their power. So we have an enemy which is very strong, and an ally which is not agreeing with us on the tactics being used to achieve the goals. And these are the two most important factors affecting Israel's decisions today.
Yeah, very, very good points, my friend. And here it comes Ehud Olmert says that continuing the military action now will drag Israel into Rafah, and that is what they want. Such a move will palpably and immediately endanger the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. Elijah, do you think that Israel is determined into going to Rafah, or are they raising let's say the bar for the negotiations, which in threatening to go to Rafah? And if they go to Rafah before Ramadan or after Ramadan, can the Rafah invasion really endanger the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt? Because lots of people also say that Egypt is complicit in this.
Well, there are many points that you have raised now. First of all, for the month of Ramadan, both the Americans and the Israelis would like to have a period of a break, not only because of the month of Ramadan, but also because of the Jewish Passover that happened on the 22nd of April after the Eid al-Fitr. This is why there is a necessity for at least 50 days of a ceasefire, because the Jewish Passover lasts for 7 days. And the month of Ramadan, that's 30 days plus 3 or 4 for the Eid. So we are more or less in 40 days. And we still have at least a week to reach an agreement. And what Netanyahu is doing, there is a say, he is bringing a new goat in the farm. So every time he sends his people to negotiate, he gives them the authority to negotiate, and then he retract on what he has promised. So at the very beginning, he said, we will expect Hamas to request 200 hostages or 200 prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, in exchange of one Israeli prisoner. And then the number went down to 100. And yesterday or today, he's talking about 1 to 10. So he is always bringing down the number, negotiating, setting the bar very high and saying, well, my ceiling is I am not going to stop the war. I will not withdraw the army completely from Gaza. He can withdraw from the populated area, but not beyond that. He wants to have access to this area anytime. And going to Rafah is inevitable, because he already said that there are 4 Hamas battalions in Rafah and that he has managed to destroy 18. He is lying, because his army is still engaged in the north and is still engaged in the city of Khan Yunis, in the east of Khan Yunis. So it's still in the middle of a battle, and he did not manage to control the area, because there's a big difference between occupying and controlling.
Yes.
Occupying, having the army there; controlling means the end of the resistance, which is something that he has not achieved. And according to many Israeli officers, they said that can take weeks. Ehud, I think it is one of the former Prime Minister said that Hamas is an ideology and cannot be defeated. So for that, it is important for Netanyahu to sell something and remain in power. Otherwise, he will be removed, and the Israeli society will ask for an early election.
Yes.
So he cannot wait until October 2026 for the new election to happen unless he sells some victory. And the victory he can sell to his people is say, I have managed to occupy Gaza. I went and destroyed the tunnels. I am on the periphery of the Philadelphia road, that's 14 kilometers, without going into the zone C or D that is allocated to the only four Israeli battalion according to the 1979 Camp David peace agreement between Egypt and Israel. I don't think Egypt is going to react as long as the Israelis don't come very close to the limit. I think he can conduct the operation in Rafah without jeopardizing the relationship with Egypt. And I think he needs to show that he is in control, which he is showing. And I agree with Mohamad that he is one of the most clever Israeli politicians so far, because he has managed to rule for more than 16 years. He is the disciple of Ishaq Shamir. He is educated in the US. He knows how to deal with the Americans. He's not allowing the international community to dictate on him their terms. So and the problem now today is with the Americans too, because the Americans are facing an election. Biden is having a critical position in Michigan, for example, and this is where there is the majority Arab community that is not going to vote for him. And he has 3 or 4 states in America that he would lose if he continues supporting Israel in this way. Therefore, establishing the first ceasefire for 40 or 45 or 50 days, and then having a little break, and then starting the negotiation for the second part, and then having a break and a third part, it will allow him to take all the prisoners and release them and give him a free hand to bomb Gaza. However, the resistance is going to refrain from giving him all the prisoners because the resistance understands that this is his plan. Yes. Nevertheless, it will be enough for him to have the first part, let's say 40 hostages or 40 prisoners, because there are a mixture of civilians and military.
Yes.
And then go to his people and say only by the use of force, Hamas was forced to release the prisoners. Again,
Indeed.
Registrating another victory that Hamas will allow, because Hamas also wants the Palestinian population to breathe without being under bombardment for 40 or 50 days.
Yes. Guys, we are around 400 people watching this live stream, and I bring to you guests and analysts from all around the world, and also I put their personal accounts in the description below. For example, today's Elijah's and Mohamad's X accounts are in the description below, in addition to their blogs and the websites that they publish their work. So if you're trying to find their work, you can find their personal accounts in the description below, in addition to their professional work, where you can read and support their work. That's very important to support, especially independent journalists, in order to bring different opinions into this battle of narratives. The second announcement is today, Robert in Lakesh, one of our colleagues and journalists, his YouTube channel has been completely taken down and deleted because of his reporting on the Gaza Strip, and he was in Palestine multiple times. And the one time that I hosted him on Syriana Analysis, YouTube has took down the video and banned me from doing live streaming for 3 months. So we shouldn't wait for YouTube to delete every and each one of us so that we start migrating to other platforms as well. It's very important, guys, that you have an account on Rumble. The link is also in the description below. Have an account on Rumble so that we can stay in touch in case they also cancel and delete me. Mohamad, Egypt has set up a red line. They said Rafah is beyond Rafah is my red line, and I'm not going to receive the Palestinian refugees. And if this is going to happen, I will consider it an act of war. And you wrote an op-ed article in The Cradle about this exact topic. The title of the article was, "Will Egypt accept Palestinian displacement in exchange for debt relief?" So how would you elaborate on that? Do you think that Egypt would accept Palestinian displacement in exchange for debt relief?
Let me start by saying that after more than 30,000 civilians dead in Gaza, I don't believe more that Arab governments really do take into consideration Palestine or Palestinians or civilians there. So I think it's more of a matter of interests. We have seen this in Saudi foreign policy, in Egypt foreign policy, in Jordanian foreign policy. So it's more a matter of interests and balancing between the cost and benefits they gain. Egypt believes that accepting Palestinians may be a threat to national security, especially because Palestinians have religious ideology, and this threatens the Egyptian president. So it's hard to accept them totally to be inside Egypt, but I believe that for the suitable price, they are willing to accept a huge number of them, maybe for a certain period of time. And this was said between Mohammed bin Salman and the French. There was a report in Le Monde that spoke about a deal that was trying to be brokered in order to take Hamas out of Gaza and put them in Egypt in the first stage, then take them to Algeria in the second stage. So it was a deal proposed by the Saudis, which Le Monde exposed. So this isn't a lot far from the truth, and I think for the proper price, Egyptians are willing to do so, as long as this doesn't affect their national security. Because although Palestinians being in Egypt is a national security threat, but also the economic situation is also a national security threat. So we have two threats and we have benefits. So if the price is suitable to drive away one national security threat, I think they are willing to compromise on the second, especially that after all what happened, there is a threat of hunger in Gaza. There is a threat of thousands of people killed in diseases, and Egypt still didn't move forward in anything. So I think it's more of a balance between benefits and costs. When you pay the price, they will take the costs. I just want also to return to a point Ilya spoke about, which is how Israel wants the victory story to be. We should always remind people that at the first day, Israel had put 3 goals for its military action in Gaza. 1, destroying Hamas. 2, returning the hostages. 3, Gaza to not be a threat anymore. After 4.5 months, Israel is sitting on the table, speaking with whom? It's speaking with Hamas. Of course, with Qatar and Egypt, but we have 2 parties that are negotiating today, which is Israel on one side and Hamas on the other side, meaning the one that the goal of Israel was to destroy. Well, I don't think. I think this gives a clear picture that the 3 goals of Israel regarding destroying Hamas is not achieved. Returning the hostages, they will never be returned other than through negotiations. And 3, Gaza not being a threat. As long as one Palestinian is living, always Palestine will be a threat to Israel. So the 3 goals are unrealistic, and they haven't been achieved till now, and they won't be achieved in the future.
Yeah, but with a very huge price, right? Like in the case of the Gaza Strip, this was really, really devastating for the Palestinian people there. And I'm not saying that, I mean, who am I to judge or evaluate that? The price was very, very high. And but it was also for both sides. I think Israel also paid a very huge price from its reputation, from its image. It's standing in front of the ICJ. This is unprecedented. And I think this was the hardest war for Israel in its history. I mean, I remember when we read the books about the Six-Day War, in 6 days, Israel occupied the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, the Golan Heights, the Sinai. And it's been how long now? 4 months, 5 months? And they are still suffering inside the... I mean, in my opinion, it's not only about the resistance, but also there are different regional factors in the region. The strength of the United States is diminishing. And there are also other factors, for example, Hezbollah. And this is, I want to move to Elijah. Escalation, it seems, between Hezbollah and Israel has become like a daily occurrence. It's tit for tat. And there is no, like, it seems both sides aren't interested in an all-out war. But both sides cannot stay silent on the escalation from the other side. It will be misinterpreted and misunderstood. You're one of the experts. Correct me if I'm wrong. I remember you saying that you're one of the experts who ruled out an all-out war between Israel and Lebanon. What's your position today in this case? Do you think we are on the way to a mutually assured destruction? This is a new article was published again in the Haaretz, and this is the topic that they were discussing: the mutually assured destruction in Lebanon. Are we on our way to mutual assured destruction? Israel is capable of inflicting massive destruction on Lebanon, but that would occur on both sides. That scenario can still be avoided.
Well, I agree with the article at the exception of the last sentence. This scenario is avoided. It is not can be avoided. There is no intention to go on an all-out war. There is a rule of engagement that everybody is respecting, but that needs further explanation. First of all, there are targets that Israel is not going to stop taking out, and that is something that I'm writing about and will come out today, but I held it just because of this conversation that we have today. So I'm going to give you many points that are going to be quoted in my next article. First of all, the Israelis will always kill and target anyone who is a member or a commander in the unit that deals with Palestine, among Hezbollah. Those who are supporting the Palestinian resistance, by all means, either electronically, intelligence information, training, weapons, contacts, etc., and the list is long. And these will be targeted anywhere on the Lebanese territory, regardless the presence of these people in Beirut, in the Bekaa Valley, in the south of Lebanon, anywhere, in Syria, anywhere. Secondly, the Israelis will always target those who are engaged in a battle on the south of Lebanon. For example, yesterday, the vice commander of a big part of the south of Lebanon was killed because he is the one who's fighting them. So these people will always be targeted wherever they are. If they are in Tyre, if they are in Nabatea, if they are in Bazaria, anywhere. Thirdly, they will always target those who are responsible for the anti-air missile and unit. But only those who are firing, not those who are in their position and in many places that exist in the Israeli Bank of Objectives. This is why yesterday, for example, they targeted next to Baalbek.
Yes.
And they targeted people who are using the anti-air missiles that are driving the Israeli crazy. And the last unit, last category they target are those, according to the Israeli information and intelligence, are related to an important dossier or unit like the Palestinian or like the anti-air missile, etc., because sometimes the Israelis have wrong intelligence information. And they already targeted a person that was not related to any of these categories, which means they don't have all their information right, but they have many correct information. So because Hezbollah used anti-air missiles in the last 4.5 months, and Israel has managed to divert these missiles electronically, because they have also an electronic warfare that is very advanced, at the exception of in the last week, Hezbollah brought a new technology, a new kind of missile. And this kind of missile, anti-air missile, has been used against the drone 450 Hermes that was downed over Lebanon in Iklim Tufa.
Is it a handheld?
No. It is not. It is the drone can reach up to 18 to 20,000 feet, and this missile, it is locked, cannot be diverted, cannot be disrupted, and it takes on the target, it blocks the target, and it goes and it's open up only in the last second, preventing any access of the Israeli to the warhead. And this is something that Iran has delivered to Hezbollah recently, and it is a battlefield where all weapons are tested, either by Israel or by Hezbollah. Therefore, there is an acceptance of Hezbollah for what the Israelis are trying to do, because the Israelis can't live with a deterrence in the air, because they have the Air Force superiority or dominance. And if Hezbollah has the possibility to down a drone like the Hermes 450 or the Hermes 900, even the more advanced, then it has a capability to down any helicopter and even any jet not flying at a medium altitude. Because if we start looking at 30,000 feet, then it requires another system that needs protection and much more complicated.
Yes.
Because of that, doesn't mean that the Israelis are breaking the rule of engagement. Secondly, both sides are bombing all the villages along the borders, and they're happy with that. So they agreed to evacuate the civilians, and there are not many civilians that have been killed, surprisingly, for the first time in the history of Israel wars on Lebanon. Thirdly, it is agreed that the infrastructure is not to be bombarded on both sides. It is agreed that civilians should not be targeted. There are always what is called collateral damage, because sometimes they want to hit a Hezbollah headquarters and there are civilians on the first floor or on the ground floor, but also sometimes they make a mistake by hitting a car thinking that there are Hezbollah in it, and then they send messages through the United Nations saying, we apologize, that is not our intention. And then Hezbollah hits Kiryat Shmona, for example, and kills a civilian, and again send a letter saying the intention was not to kill civilians. So that is kept under a certain control. However, we should not forget that Hezbollah sent drone 90 kilometers deep into Israeli-controlled territory, beyond Haifa. Therefore, for the Israeli to go and bomb Baalbek, which is 100 plus kilometers, is more or less the same. And there are drones that are sent in different times and different days that have not been announced. So it means there is a kind of deterrence, there is a kind of balance. But the most important of all that is Hezbollah saying when to start the war. And Hezbollah started on the 8th of October. And Hezbollah is going to say when it is going to end. So therefore, the dictating the timing of the war, again, never happened in the history of Israel, is no longer in the hand of the Israeli government or army, but in the hand of an organized non-state actor like Hezbollah. So when the Israelis bomb Baalbek today, or also in the last days, Hezbollah bombed the Syrian Golan Heights, or bombed Safad in the previous week, or bombed other Israeli control and command centers that Israel was extremely surprised of knowing that Hezbollah has access and knowledge of these places. So there is a kind of a balance in the battlefield, and I don't think there is any break of a rule of engagement on both sides.
Mohamad, but if I want to ask you this, like Elijah rules out the possibility of an all-out war between Hezbollah and Israel. And for a hypothetical question, I mean, this was an article again published in Israeli media, and it says fire and blood, the chilling reality facing Israel in a war with Hezbollah. Over 100 senior military and government officials participated in a report by Reichman University's Institute for Counterterrorism, which details how unprepared the Israeli home front is for an all-out war with Hezbollah. Do you think this is one of the factors why Israel is not daring to widen the scope of the war with Hezbollah because of the balance of deterrence? There is a mutually assured destruction from both sides. Or do you think the current radical government in Israel may do miscalculation and wage such a war against Lebanon?
Well, I think if it was only for them, they would have miscalculated the situation months back. But I think it's more complicated than that. Well, the situation between Lebanon and Israel is really too complicated and has a lot of important factors that move together and affect how Israel's decisions are being taken in Lebanon and how Hezbollah's decisions also are being taken with respect to how to address the threat, the Israeli threat to Lebanon. And I do agree that a full-scale war is hard to reach, although it's not impossible, of course, but its possibility is it's really very low. And that's mainly because of having a power in Lebanon that's being able to deter. And let's remind people that Hezbollah, when they started bombing Israel on 8th of October, they said they worked as if they have three goals from that. First, to be a support front for Gaza, which they achieved. Second, to deter Israel from having a full-scale war. And third, to forbid Israel from controlling the level of escalation. And that's why when Israel escalates, Hezbollah also escalates. And these are the main three goals that are moving Hezbollah's decision today regarding how to react to the threat. But also to be realistic here, Hezbollah doesn't have the same military capabilities as Israel.
There is
Israel
a technical...
Okay.
Yeah, continue, my friend. I think there was a technical problem, but you're back.
Okay. So although Hezbollah doesn't have the same military power that Israel has, deterrence doesn't need the second party to have a very high level of power. You use a specific level of power to achieve a specific goal. As long as this goal is achieved with this level of power, then you're okay. And the main difference between Lebanon and Israel is that if you destroy all of Lebanon, you'll only achieve a tactical goal. But if Hezbollah bombs Haifa and cities in south of Palestine, then this will be a major problem for Israel. So it's somehow kind of a difference between how we perceive destruction and how they perceive destruction. For example, you can see that when people left the south of Palestine, they became a pressure on Netanyahu, whereas people who left the south of Lebanon today, they are supporting the Lebanese resistance, supporting Lebanon, supporting Gaza. So it's a difference of perception and difference of how we perceive the threat. And this is what deters Israel. I think the most important factor deterring Israel isn't just Hezbollah having a specific level of power or specific capabilities. It's more than the fact that they know on the strategic level, a war in Lebanon is so devastating on them. They will be able to achieve some tactical goals, but on the strategic level, it's a very problem for them, and that's what they are aware of, and that's what's deterring them from going to a full-scale war in Lebanon, and that's what is forcing the Americans also to pressure them to not go to a place where they lose on the strategic level to a very in a very bad way. And this is what the Americans are doing today, because they saw, for example, what's happening in Gaza. You can say whatever you want regarding the tactical goals, because the Americans are the masters of putting the goals for others and just having the narrative they want. But as a matter of fact, when we speak on the strategic level, today we have in the Red Sea a regional power that is telling the world, I also have control over the Red Sea. This is one of the consequences of Gaza. Today, the Americans are being hit in the region. This is of the consequences of Gaza. Today, you have axis of resistance, which was a theory before Gaza war. Now we see the implications of this axis of resistance. This is of the implications of the consequences of Gaza too. We have a certain level of deterrence between Hezbollah and Israel. This kind of war is the first time we have it between Lebanon and Israel. And as a matter of fact, I think the Israelis are surprised to the level they are deterred. And this let us remind people that also that this deterrence, forbidding Israel from going to a full-scale war, is only achieved by using a small percentage of power. And this is how you manage your power. This is how you manage the conflicts. And this is what the Americans are speaking, that one of the most important factors that Hezbollah is using today is they are being very smart in managing the power and controlling this power and how to use it against an enemy with the size of Israel.
Elijah and Mohamad, thank you very much, gentlemen, for dedicating your valuable time for me and for the audience of Syriana Analysis. I myself learned a lot from you guys. If you appreciate what you heard and what you learned, go follow their work. And if you haven't been yet a subscriber of Syriana Analysis, please subscribe. Hit the like button. It's free and it helps this video reach to more people. And if you like, guys, to support my independent work, you can become a patron. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. And tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time, we will have another live streaming. See you tomorrow. Peace be upon you. Salam.